Center with me, Maria Shakil. External Affairs Minister Dr. S Jaishankar has sent a message to Rahul Gandhi and George Soros in a recent interview to ANI's Smita Prakash. Countering Rahul Gandhi's claim that the Modi government has ceded land to the Chinese, Jaishankar asserted that the Prime Minister has pushed the largest peacetime deployment at the line of actual control, that is the LAC. Slamming opposition attacks over border skirmishes, Jaishankar pointed out that the Modi government has actually established peace and security at the LAC, unlike the previous regimes, despite the provocations of the Chinese military. Jaishankar also hit back at billionaire George Soros over his recent criticism of Prime Minister Modi over the Adani Hindenburg controversy, claiming election season seems to have kicked off in the West. He called Soros an old, opinionated and dangerous person who always indulges in scaremongering, claiming the timing is not accidental, highlighting the upcoming G20 summit in New Delhi and the 2024 general elections next year. The External Affairs Minister has always delivered fiery counters to the government's critics. So the question that we are asking is, has he silenced them once again and also highlighted the skewed Western narratives mobilized against the centre and the country?
If we were being accommodative, who sent the Indian army to the LAC? Rahul Gandhi didn't send it. Narendra Modi sent it. We are debating actually politics which is being conducted ostensibly as media, so there is a phrase, war by other means. There is also, think of it, this is politics by another means. You'll do a hatchet job, then you want to do a hatchet job and say, well, this is just another quest for truth which we decided after 20 years to put out at this time. So come on, you think the timing is accidental? Let me tell you one thing. I don't know if election season has started in India and Delhi or not, but for sure it has started in London and New York.
RP Singh, BJP spokesperson, joining me live. Sujata Paul, spokesperson of the Congress Party. We also have Ashok Sajanhar, former diplomat. Smita Prakash, editor of ANI, and Ainar Tangent, political affairs commentator, joining me from Beijing. Smita Prakash, beginning with you, all questions asked and all answered. He is not a minister who minces words. What makes Jaishankar dabble between domestic politics, because he trained his guns at Rahul Gandhi directly, and diplomacy with such elan? This is a question to someone who has tracked his years as a diplomat as well.
Yeah, he does mince his words actually. A typical diplomat, he takes a little time to get around to speaking. He has become a politician, Maria, so there are times where he talks directly, but otherwise, like any diplomat, he talks in larger terms. He doesn't go into very specific attacks. You'll notice that for me to get him to speak, it took a little while. So it was a kind of a longish podcast. He did get down to it ultimately when he spoke about the attacks on India, which he said were political in nature, and he said that nothing is coincidental. It's all well thought out. He didn't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, he says, but he says that join the dots. It's not as if these attacks are happening because there is no election happening. Of course, it's connected to the elections, is what he said.
So elections, it's timed with the elections. The question then is, Sujata Paul, how many clarifications will the opposition need from the centre when it comes to the situation at the LAC? The view would certainly be that, are you guilty of falling prey to propaganda then?
No matter what Mr. Jaishankar has to say, the fact is that you could see that he's got a personal problem also. I do understand that, and I was expecting better, frankly, and he's talking about politics coming from outside. I was amazed at how he's pointing fingers at somebody outside. In the last 70 years, it didn't happen, but after Modi came, yes, politics outside is what politics inside the country
But Sujata
depends
Paul,
on. I've
didn't
never heard
Indira
this happen
Gandhi
before.
famously talk about the foreign hand? How do we forget
About
that?
foreign hand, but not in elections. Not in elections. He's talking about everything is happening today. Everything that the problems that Mr. Modi is facing, he says, are due to elections happening in other countries. I mean, what kind of logic is that? Now, he might have made a claim about sending, army to the LAC, but is he trying to say that he knows everything? He has to come out and tell us what this claim is, that, a huge number of troops have been sent to LAC. Now, let me also tell you, Maria, that when he talks about army being sent over there at a huge cost with great effort, I would like to remind you of what happened to the Standing Committee of Defense when Major General B.C. Khanduri from the BJP was heading it. He was thrown out of the Standing Committee because he demanded greater budget for the defense. That speaks for itself. So when you talk about your infrastructure spending, like he said, that it is 5 times. Yes, it might be 5 times, but that is all that they know. And you know what has happened to the Char Dham route, the cracks which are happening in Joshimath. Let us connect the dots and you will understand that what he is talking about was not really making any sense. I want to understand where was the Lal Aankh? He's saying that I find
Smita Prakash, where is the Lal Aankh? Is what the Congress party is asking. Did you see that Lal Aankh in your interview?
I can't understand. No, Jaishankar doesn't do Lal Aankh. That's not him. That's not his style. He, in fact, even when I try to say something about, why is it that India is the only one who keeps up with, the agreements that we signed, whereas the other side, which is China, it doesn't keep up to it. So at that time, he said that, don't expect us. It has, the reason that India signs agreements is to keep with the agreement. We sign it, we stand by our word. So it's not as if that's not our track record. And he said that regardless of which government comes to power in India, we stand by our words, and that's our reputation. As far as I don't understand what Lal Aankh is supposed to mean. I don't think the foreign minister shows Lal Aankh. I don't know. I don't expect the foreign minister of India to ever show Lal Aankh anywhere.
Okay, RP Singh, that was a political point that has been made by Sujata Paul, of course. But the larger question then is that here is Dr. S Jaishankar, who has been giving responses, and today he again was at his fiery best in that interview with Smita Prakash. But the question that is being asked by the opposition and particularly by the Congress is that is it only loud words or big words?
Well, first, let me clarify that Lal Aankh. I have seen that Chora Ghopne Wala Haath. They have signed an agreement with Communist Party of China, and they come and talk about Lal Aankh and all. When they took money from Communist Party of China, the embassy here, for the Rajiv Gandhi Foundation, and they talk about Lal Aankh. And they speak the language of the Communist Party of China, or they reiterate whatever Global Times feed is being given to them, and they should come. They come and speak only that what is required by the Global Time for them to speak. But that point aside, do you remember Anthony Saab's speech in the Parliament? 2014, if I rightly remember, April 2000, just a session before the election in Parliament. He said, we are not building infrastructure on the China border. We are scared that if we build infrastructure on the China border, China will come and use that infrastructure. But that was the thought process of the Congress Party, UPA regime, that, we should not even touch China. We should not even think about building infrastructure. In the last 8 years, infrastructure has been built all around the China border. Not only that, deployment has been made there all around, in all sectors, right from Arunachal to Ladakh.
Okay, let's listen in to what Dr. S Jaishankar actually told Smita Prakash when specifically asked about the line of actual control, and then I'll go back to the panelists.
Why can we not come to an agreement on where is the boundary, how many rounds of talks, and it's non-conclusive?
Because when people are, their claims, when any other country's claims are not reasonable, you will not come to agreement. You and I can come to an agreement. If I make claims on you which are not reasonable, but you will concede it because 25 rounds have happened. You have to look at, what is being discussed as well, no?
Right.
So,
Okay.
So look, if I were to sum up the China thing, I mean, please do not, buy this whole, I would say, again, I use this word, this narrative that somewhere government is on the defensive, somewhere we are being accommodative. I mean, I ask people, if we were being accommodative, who sent the Indian army to the LAC? Rahul Gandhi didn't send them. Narendra Modi sent them. Okay? We have today the largest peacetime deployment in our history on the China border. Okay? And we are keeping troops there at a huge cost with great effort. We have increased our infrastructure spending on the border 5 times in this government. So now tell me, who's the defensive, accommodative person? In fact, the question you should ask is, who's actually telling the truth, who's depicting things accurately, who's playing footsie with history? I think those are the questions which should be asked.
Aina Tangent, given the escalation of the situation at the LAC, my question is, why have multiple corps commander level talks failed to get consensus from the Chinese side in particular? Because if anything, this is an expansionist China. Is this going to be the new normal?
Well, you have your own perspective about it. Obviously, India sees China as the difficult one. China sees India as the difficult one. China has said from its side that it wants to settle the issue. They want a global settlement. From India's point of view, it's not clear what they want other than little bits of territory. There's been talk about Arunachal Pradesh and taking lands back that are currently under Chinese control. That's not helpful. So if it is meaningful, there has to be an overall strategy right now from China's perspective. He doesn't know what India wants. It's waiting. It'll be patient. But, the internal politics of what you're talking about are internal to India and not something that China is concerned about. But I would draw one issue. I mean, while Jaishankar is defending his China policy and, each side is trying to use China as a political card, the fact is there doesn't seem to be a lot of overall strategy. What is the Indian foreign policy? You have China coming out with their global security initiative, talking about a global compact. India has not responded to it, nor has it put forward its own. And I think, India is a big nation. It needs to start thinking about these things beyond just, minor border issues, to start thinking about the kind of world that it wants to be part of.
Okay. India certainly is sending a message that it could very well be the architect of the new world order. The other part of this interview of Smita Prakash with Dr. S Jaishankar was Dr. S Jaishankar talking about how for the world, the elections for 2024 have begun. Ashok Sajanar, from the BBC documentary to what George Soros has said, which ends up becoming a political flashpoint, is information warfare something we must treat as a security and diplomatic challenge then? And that's what he certainly hinted at.
No, absolutely. Maria, I quite agree with what Dr. Jaishankar has said. And I think this was also, this whole issue about the information warfare and how people in India need to be careful and cautious about it was also raised by the Vice President, Sri Dhankar, when he was speaking to the Information Service officials. This is definitely true. I think all these issues that we've raised about the BBC documentary coming out 20 years after the incident took place, taking no cognizance, no notice of what has happened in India during these 20 years, that the matter has been discussed threadbare as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. The Supreme Court has given a clean chit to the Prime Minister, to the then Chief Minister of Gujarat. No cognizance of all that. How did this all start?
Yes.
So it is a motivated, it is a biased reportage, and there is nothing new that has been brought out. So obviously the timing is very, very suspect. And, this starts from London, and of course, from New York, we have George Soros coming out during the Munich Security Conference and coming out very openly that, they want to have a change in the government. So when the BBC documentary had come out, Maria, I think on your channel, I had said,
Yes.
This is not going to be the end of it. This is not the last that we are seeing of this. This is going to repeat itself in multiple ways. And we have seen that, whether it is this, even as far as this Hindenburg report, let it be investigated. I would leave it to that at the moment. But the manner in which it has come out, I think that also raises a large number of doubts. I think we are going to see much more of all of this in the coming weeks and months. And India needs to be prepared for all that. And I'm glad that Dr. Jaishankar has flagged this issue.
Yes. The point that is being made here, Sujata Paul, by Dr. Jaishankar is also, which will bring me to my very innocent question. Has it ever happened that Indian billionaires or businessmen have made such vicious comments against leaders of other countries? And here is George Soros saying such a thing, and the entire Indian polity or the political class should be speaking in one language, that you cannot interfere with what is a democratic process in our country.
How does it matter what George Soros has to say?
It does matter because he is seen as someone who funds several NGOs. He's seen as someone who has pledged $1 billion for what he says is to fight against rising nationalism. And in that, he singled out Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
I don't know why you need to be so defensive, or any one of us have to talk about George Soros. He's a 92-year-old man, and that's where we should leave him. Where he invests his money has nothing to do with us. What organizations he runs or what he's part of, how does it matter to India? India is too strong for a 92-year-old man making any kind of claim. This is India, and our internal matters are ours. But let's not make a mockery of ourselves by trying to defend what somebody outside is saying. For example, the BBC documentary. Why are we going so defensive about it? If the Prime Minister got a clean chit, then that's where it should stop. Why are they going around raiding the BBC office? And mind you, as far as the problems are concerned within the country, we need to sort them out. But when you talk about the 2002 riots, somebody has to take responsibility for the people who died at that time. And of course, it will always be the Chief Minister. It doesn't matter whether he's been given a clean chit. That's a separate thing. We respect that. We respect that he got a clean chit. But is somebody going to take responsibility for the people who died? And it's always going to be the leader who has to do that. Another thing, we were talking about, what happened in Pangong, etc. Now tell me, what happened on 15 June 2020 was the bloodiest exchange that happened.
I'm going to bring it back to my question that I've asked, Sujata. I've asked about the narrative, and this is a narrative war or information warfare which has begun much before the 2024 elections. Let me get a response from RP Singh. Please go ahead, RP Singh.
Well, I'm shocked at this, Maria, that the way he's narrating 2002. I mean, in spite of the fact they're saying that, okay, Supreme Court has given a clean chit and
so nobody died. No role to play. Nobody will take responsibility. Somebody has to take responsibility, Mr. RP Singh. There were people who died. You have to take responsibility. If you had a BJP government, the BJP government will have to take responsibility for the people who died. For the people who died.
Sujata Paul,
It is always the government which takes responsibility.
Can we go with what the Supreme Court has said? What the Supreme Court has said, is that more critical for our country, or what a BBC documentary is saying, which is not even presenting the truth? Okay, RP Singh. Okay, let's listen from RP Singh. Yes.
Rajiv Gandhi is directly involved in butchering 3,000 Sikhs in Delhi. And the court is still investigating that matter. Court is still under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. SIT has filed a report. CBI court is still following up the case of Mr. Titler, who's your best friend, who's your best bedfellow of the dynasty. And also, what about Sajjan Kumar? I mean, people who killed and butchered. Read GPS Sidhu's book on Khalistan conspiracy. He categorically stated that Rajiv Gandhi was leading the gang which killed and butchered 3,006 in Delhi. So you have no right to talk about anything after the Supreme Court has given a clean chit to the Prime Minister, then CM of Gujarat. So you are intentionally doing, and I'm saying it on record, there are countries like China and Pakistan there are corporations like BBC, there are NGOs like Amnesty International,
Removing me from the screen is not going to
Edinburgh.
help.
Allow me to complete. Just hold your breath. Edinburgh and also people like Soros and parties like Congress and Mandal parties. They can't defeat Prime Minister Modi through ballot. That's why they are trying to get this ecosystem for 2024. Mark my word, people will give you a befitting reply. People of India will give you a befitting reply. People of India will give befitting reply to butchers of the sect.
Okay, I have just enough time for the final word from Smita Prakash. Smita Prakash, two big headlines, and I'm going to play that Soros bite again, for the viewers before I come to you. Let's listen into what the External Affairs Minister had to say in the context of the narrative setting by the West.
Many say that ban this and ban that. Do you believe that that is a solution to it? Banning a documentary here, banning a book there, asking a channel not to broadcast in India?
No. Look, I don't think that you're asking the right question. I'd ask you a counter question. What is it we are debating? We are not debating just a documentary or a speech that somebody gave in a European city or
New York.
a newspaper edit somewhere. We are debating actually politics which is being conducted ostensibly as media. So, there is a phrase, war by other means. There is also, think of it, this is politics by another means. You'll do a hatchet job. Then you want to do a hatchet job and say, well, this is just another quest for truth which we decided after 20 years to put out at this time. So come on, you think the timing is accidental? Let me tell you one thing. I don't know if election season has started in India and Delhi or not, but for sure it has started in London and New York.
So the election season has begun, and if anything, Smita Prakash, according to Dr. S Jaishankar, this is war by other means.
Yeah. No, he said like the term war by other means, there's also politics by other means, and there he drew the parallel. Now, the thing is that it'll be naive to think that just because Soros is an old man, he's not a dangerous man. Of course, he's dangerous. His age doesn't matter. The fact that he pumps in billions of dollars into companies which set narratives abroad, and that gets churned into our echo chambers in our country, to think that narratives do not matter, Maria, is really being naive. For years in Kashmir, our narrative on Kashmir, our voice on Kashmir was not heard in the world. It was Pakistan's words which were heard. Their narrative was what was listened to, and it was not ours. So unless we are effective with our narrative, that's what matters. Now I'm talking about a separate thing. When it comes to politics, it doesn't really suit some people about what India is doing. The political commentator you had just now, earlier before me, he said the same thing, that he says, if China has its point of view clear, India is muddled. If anybody says today that India is muddled as far as foreign policy is concerned, they need to think again. Because I don't think India has ever been so much at the high table as it is today. India's voice is heard everywhere, from West Asia to East Asia, from the Atlantic to Australia. We are there at all these forums. We are there in Quad, we are there in BRICS, we are there in several, in G20. I can start naming several of them. We are heard, our voice is heard. So to say that our foreign policy is confused is extremely wrong. And why do people say that? Those who are saying it are the people who are getting fed this narrative, which is being funded by people who want that confused narrative to come across.
So this is narrative war, Ashok Sajanhar, and the point here is that we have heard it in the past. Here is the government which is saying clearly that they are preparing themselves for a bigger battle that will not be played domestically between the BJP and other parties in opposition. It will be coming from an enemy of this nature, which will be trying to, paint India in a particular way, because that is a convenient narrative which has been set so far about India. about various decisions that have been taken by the Indian government in the past.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Maria. I quite agree with what you have said, with what Smita Prakash has said. This is a narrative war and we need to be ready for it. And I don't think, we can be ready by just reacting and responding to what is being churned out by the others, by the outsiders. We have to create our own narrative and we have to create a credible narrative. Our narrative is very strong, but this gentleman from China who was saying, basically, I think our position has been very clear on settling the border. It is, if they don't want to take cognizance of what we are saying, then they will come out with arguments like this. But they don't hold water, and we have been telling them, it's very, very clear. Like with Pakistan, we say no terror, we'll talk with you. As far as China is concerned, you disengage, de-escalate.
Yes.
And that is not what they are prepared to do. After all, Maria, it was China that broke the agreements of 93 and 96.
That's right.
And brought in 50,000 troops on the LAC and brought in so many of their equipment and aircrafts. So I think they are the ones who have broken the agreement. But coming back to your question, yes, it is a narrative war. We need to be ready, we need to be prepared, and we need to create our own credible, strong narratives and go out into the world with that.
All right, thank you so
much. How India
is
doing in terms of dealing with the pandemic, dealing with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And, what he was saying about that China has come with this global initiative. India has come out with its own motto of G20, one earth, one family, one future. And we don't even just
it becomes very, very crucial because this is the year of India's G20 presidency.